Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, inspiring journalists, writers, readers, and nature lovers to embrace creativity and nature connection for positive well-being. I'm your host, Anna Woolliscroft. Join me for honest conversations with people who use writing, journaling, and time in nature to find clarity, process life's experiences, and live a more fulfilling life. Whether you're a seasoned writer, a curious beginner, or simply someone seeking a deeper connection to life, this podcast is for you. It's wonderful to have you here today. In this episode of the Writing with Purpose podcast, I'm joined by Maria Newman, a certified NLP master practitioner, hypnotherapist, coach, and author. Maria left a long-standing career at Rolls-Royce in 2016 and has spent nearly a decade helping working mums rediscover who they are beyond the roles they play. We explore identity, navigating life's transitions, and her belief that the answers we seek are already within us. In this episode, I'm joined by Maria Newman, a certified NLP master practitioner, hypnotherapist, coach, and author who has spent nearly a decade helping working mums rediscover who they are beyond the roles they play. After leaving a long-standing career at Rolls-Royce, Maria built her own coaching practice from the ground up and has since written 2 books. Founded Yamas, an online networking community, and launched her podcast, Rising from the Rubble. Her work centres on helping women build confidence, silence the inner critic, and step into the life they want to live. Today, we're going to explore her journey, her books, and the simple but powerful practices that help us do exactly that. Maria, welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be joining you.
I'm very excited to have you here. So let's start off with some quick fire round questions I always ask everybody. So what is the last book that you read and how does it connect with where you are in life at the moment or work?
So I don't tend to read books. I listen to books because I find that I consume them better that way. The last one I listened to was Karmic Management by, I'm probably going to get this name wrong, Geshe Michael Roach. And it's all about, for me, what you put out there, you then get back, which is what I'm all about. It's, internally, how are you? Because that's what attracts the external that you see.
Yeah, that whole law of attraction. Totally on board with that as well. I do think that, if you're a little bit down in the dumps, then that's going to reflect everything around you. But if you stay positive and look for those signs and project that sort of thing, then what goes around comes around. Yeah, so thank you for sharing. We'll add that to the show notes so that people can look that up. But it sounds as though that's going to be one that I would like to read as well. Scrolling back the years a little bit, what was your favourite childhood book? And when you look back on that, do you think it tells you anything about the person that you were becoming at the time, or maybe who you've become now?
So when I was a child, I was really picky on the books that I read. And one that I loved reading it, and it stayed with me today, is called Back Home by Michelle Marjorian. And it's just, the story captures, I think, how we feel in life because we go through different chapters. So the essence of the story is there's a girl called Rusty who is sent over to America whilst the war is happening here in England, in Britain. And then she obviously comes back. And she's used to a life of freedom and a very different way of living than when she comes back to England, which is all limited and restricted and managed, and finds it really difficult to come back to home, to where she's going to be for the rest of her life. And I think that's how we feel when we go through different chapters of our lives, when we go through different life events. We go from feeling like we have freedom, we know what's going on, we can do anything and anything, to all of a sudden finding ourselves in a situation which is unknown, unclear. We don't know what the rules are, we don't know what the boundaries are, and that can make us feel awkward and uncomfortable. So I think, without realizing it, it tells the story of how life can feel as we transition through different parts of life.
Yeah, Yeah, when we're younger, adulthood, adolescence, yeah, that's it's a very relevant, almost the story being a metaphor for different aspects and periods of life. Yeah, totally, totally. Because we all have these uppalls every so often, don't we? And things that just knock us off our track a little bit, and then getting back to something that feels normal, or maybe creating a new norm. Yeah, I've not heard of that one, but it said, have you read that as an adult or was it just as a child?
Just as a child, although, I mean, there's no reason why. Do you know what? When my next Audible credit comes up, I think I'm actually going to use the credit to buy it to see what would be interesting is to see how I interpret the book now versus me when I think I was in junior school when I read the book, or maybe early middle school. So, around like the 10-ish
Mm.
mark. So 40 years ago, oh dear. So yeah, no, I'm going to do that because that'd be really interesting.
It would be really interesting, yeah, and see how you can compare I bet there's probably an adult level to the book now that you'll see other things as you read it. Sorry, as you listen to it. And that brings me on to the next question because I think if you say yes to this, then this would be a very nice exercise when you listen to the book. So, do you have any kind of writing, reflection, practice, journaling?
Yes, I do. I do. So, as part of my evening routine to help me wind down and to give the signal to my body that it's time to go to sleep now, I always journal in my diary. So I buy a day per page journal every year. And in there, I could write anything. It might be as simple as how the day's gone. It might be what's on my mind at the moment, whatever is at the forefront of my mind. And then the next thing that I do is I note down 10 things that I am grateful for, whether it's something that I've enjoyed during the day or something that's specific that I am grateful for. I ensure that I write 10, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to find 10. I always find 10 though. I used to have a practice of just listing what I could. And in a way, I felt like I was letting myself off the hook rather than really looking at the day and going, what is there to be grateful for? What am I grateful for? So it's a really good way of replaying the day and knowing whether you've been present during the day. Because it's so
Yeah.
easy to obviously just be on autopilot. The other thing I do, so now going to the other part of the day, in the morning, I always write my 3 priorities for the day and I write my intentions down in my different journal. So that again, I'm putting out there how I want my day to go. So it might be very, very specific if there are things that I want to achieve during the day. It might be as simple as thank you for this amazing day that was full of love, life, and love.
Yeah, I'd loved what you said about it's an example of how present you've been during the day, and I guess how easy or hard that writing those gratitude bullet points or sentences might be. In particular, thinking some of the times when I've just had the day and I've just been in front of the computer all day, and it seems as though that's all I've done. I might steal your little practice there. I used to do something similar. I'd start in the morning and I'd put 5 things I was grateful for in the morning and 5 things I was grateful for in the evening. And I did notice a trend that they started off being a little bit more asset related or had some kind of, it was a thing. And then as I got more into it, it was more about thankful that my limbs all worked and fresh air and being able to see my parents and that sort of things. I think it's nice to be able to look back over those things and see how that's changed. But yeah, I will pick that back up again now because it's a nice way of saying thank you to the day and everybody you've come into contact, everything, every bit of energy that you've consumed for throughout the day. So yeah, thank you for that. And nice to hear that you've got a couple of different routines and a couple of different journals because I've got 3 at the moment. I've got a dream journal as well.
Wow. Wow. I love the sound of a dream journal. I
Yeah.
might borrow that one then.
Borrow drift, yeah. Do you know, just completely sidetracking from the questions, but all conversations go like this, don't they? I think it makes it more natural. But I went for a tarot. Is it tarot or tarot? I never know how to pronounce it. A tarot reading, I think it is. It was part of a meal for a friend's birthday a few weeks ago, and she said to me, "Pay more attention to your dreams." Which I thought was interesting because most mornings I record my dreams, but I don't always sit there and reflect on, what it could mean, what's been going on in my subconscious mind while I've been sleeping, what I can draw from that with my living life. Number two takeaway for me as well as your book recommendation. So thanks, Maria. Right, so let's move on a little bit. You left your a long career at Rolls-Royce in 2016 while you were on maternity leave with your second child. That was quite a significant leap from a security and into the unknown. So can you take us back to that moment and what was really going on for you? Share, what we feel comfortable in sharing.
So it's funny because although I made the decision in 2016 to leave, the seed had actually been planted many years before then because I was fortunate enough to work for Rolls-Royce whilst I was studying. So I did an internship with them. And I was in the car with a senior manager and we were driving to Uxbridge University to recruit other interns. And obviously, I was young, I was keen. So I asked him simply, how did you get to where you are today? And it was a really short response. He said, I started as an apprentice. I then got a graduate job. I worked my way up the ladder, becoming a manager. I got married. We had a couple of children. And now the pension is too good to leave. And obviously on the outside, I was like, uh-huh. And on the inside, I was going, oh my word, that sounds like a sentence, not, something to inspire me. And I'd said to myself, when I go into the world of work properly, I'm only going to stay in a company for 5 years because I don't want to feel like I'm stuck. I want the freedom to go and see and to do things. Well, Anna, I went back to Rolls-Royce. Before I knew it, 5 years had passed, 10 years had passed, 15 years had passed, and I was in danger of being the person that I didn't want to be, reflecting, the man that was in the car with me. So I had a good talking to myself and thought, if I don't go now, I literally will stay here until I retire. I need to leave. I need to explore other things. I told my husband what my plans were, and he sort of looked at me as if to say, are you mad, woman? Exactly like you said. It's a job security. You're doing well. Why would you leave? And it's a case of, I'd rather regret something that I've done than regret something I haven't done. So I took voluntary redundancy, fortunately, and I went to see a life coach. Her name was Anna. She was amazing. And one of the first questions she asked me, because I left without a real plan other than, well, I'll go and find a job working for another company whose principles more align with mine, and considering I'm a mum with two young children, fit more with our lifestyle. So she said to me, Maria, what would you really like to do? And without even thinking about it, the words that came out of my mouth was, I'd like to run my own business, but I don't have a thing because I didn't want to do project management, which is what I was doing at Rolls-Royce. So I worked with her. We explored different things. I started my first business, which was called Fill That Space, and it was about supporting local Bristol artists promote themselves, sell their artwork. I was also blogging as Mummy on a Break on Facebook because I was a mummy, I was on a break. And I did it for two reasons. The first reason was I'd been given a gift of some time off to, decide what I really wanted to do in life. And if I could also inspire other mums to just pause a second, they didn't have to leave their job or whatever, just pause long enough to reflect and say, is this what I want? Then that would be a bonus. The outcome of this was that eventually I wound down, Fill That Space, because I realised that actually I wanted to help people find their path. I wanted to help people get out of their way and do the thing that they want to do. So I lovingly built an online course because as mums, our time isn't linear. There are pockets of time here and there. So an online course to help mums help themselves that they could dip into when they had the time seemed the best way to help. I lovingly poured in all this energy and time into creating this, what I thought was a wonderful course. Have you seen the film Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner?
Long time ago. Yeah.
And you remember how they said to him, build it and they will come. He built it, they came. I built it, I got tumbleweeds. And this was in 2020, you know, that year where the world got shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself, fortunately, I'm married, my husband's working. I still find myself though going, okay, then, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to be a stay-at-home mum. I want to work. And at the time I was podcasting. So I thought, it's all right. I will simply teach people to podcast because it is easy and people think it's complicated. And that started this run of putting on workshops. So I taught people how to make money using their superpower, how to master their mindset, how to use social media. Whilst there's still this yearning, I still want to be working on a one-to-one with people specifically on helping them with the thing, whatever the thing is.
There was still something missing.
Yeah, it wasn't, I was helping people and that was great. I love the fact that people would go, actually, it is quite simple. So that's then what led me to get my qualifications in NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, to then have the confidence in me to go, right, I'm going to work on a one-to-one. So there you go. That's what happened.
Yeah. And you've never looked back since? Because it sounds as though from the story that you've just taken us through that it was quite although that seed had been planted from that conversation in the car, that the actual decision to leave was quite spontaneous. And then everything seemed to happen very quickly after that. Yes, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I think that seed being planted in my head, I knew I wanted to leave at some point. Being brave enough to actually leave was the thing that stopped me leaving sooner. Because it's a case of, I haven't got enough experience. I haven't got enough qualifications. I haven't got enough of this, when actually that's just procrastination. Those are the excuses we tell ourselves to make the not making a decision legitimate. So eventually, obviously, I did pluck up the courage and go, well, it's now or never, Maria. I mean, this is the best chance I'm going to get. And so I just did. I just did it. I think in a way, knowing that whatever the outcome would be, it's going to be okay. I'll find my way like I found my way doing other things.
Yeah, you were confident in yourself with that. I think a lot of people can relate to those self-limiting beliefs as well, and the procrastination, not feeling good enough, not having the skills, having the qualifications, and always seeking that next level when really just trust yourself and feel confident and get it done. But you've lived that experience, so you're in the right position to be able to have those one-to-ones and help the women who are experiencing similar situations and fears, but have this desire to step forward. Yeah, congratulations. So your book, Busy, which I'm right in thinking is your first one?
My first solo book.
First solo book. It uses the image of tightrope and to describe the life that many working mums are living. So at what point did you realise that was kind of an image for what you were experiencing yourself, and why the tightrope rather than anything else?
So when I first started blogging, I would talk a lot about the mummy juggle and, keeping the balls in the air and what that felt like. What would it feel like if a ball would drop? Would the world come crashing down? Probably not. And I've got this wonderful friend called Robin Harris, who she talks about, rather than the balanced life that, the utopia we talk about, she talks about balancing life. Because if you're in that I'm going to say, dynamic motion of balancing, which is, walking a tightrope, you are balancing, then you're more prepared and I think actually more comfortable with the challenges that life brings you, because life will always throw you a curveball. If you've got a balanced life and you're basically stationary, when a curveball comes your way, it does upset the apple cart, because you've gone from having what seems like stability to all of a sudden not having stability. Whereas if you're in that motion, as I said earlier, of balancing, then you're already dynamic. There is movement naturally. So a curveball, I think, is less impactful and allows you to then deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's as though that you've already got some of that core stability that if something comes your way that's going to knock you a little bit, you'll have a wobble, but you won't actually have a fall.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think images like this as well, these metaphors that we can create about things that happen, the tightrope, the juggling. It's so easy for us to relate to because we can see it in our mind's eye, or it takes us back to a memory of something that we've seen or felt that we can connect to it. It's like it's the storytelling aspect, isn't it, rather than just the telling.
Absolutely, yes. And our brains love a story. If you're going to learn something and somebody actually tells you a story about the thing that you want to learn, you are more likely to retain that information as opposed to if somebody just tells you the raw facts. And I think that's probably why the likes of Darren Brown, where he's
Mm.
able to recall several items that he might have only seen at a second. He tells himself a story that links all those items together so that then when somebody says, all right, then what were those 25 items that were on a tray? Well, he's told himself the story that links them, and then he's able
Yeah.
to just replay the story and go, oh, well, there was an apple, and there was a broken shoe, and there was a this, and there was a that. So yeah, our minds are really good at holding on to information if it's given to us in story form.
Yeah, yeah, story form and a visual format or
Mm,
something that's a bit wacky as well.
mm, mm.
I did a brain training course once a number of years ago, and they taught us a technique similar to that. There was two actually. One, I forget it now. That doesn't sound very good, does it? But there is meant to be a bit of, an element of repetition in order for stuff to stick. But we learned the first so many characters of pi, the mathematical equation
Yes,
of pi,
yeah.
through that storytelling process of having that story. And I remember some aspects of it. You came out of the house, and so something happened out of the house that you saw in front of you. And then we went to a shopping centre, and then there was this shop and there was that shop. And all of these images anchor these things that you remember. It's fascinating how it works, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I remember doing something once in my kitchen and all the cupboards. I'd go around all the cupboards and the oven and the bread bin and the kettle, and each one of those items represented something that I needed to remember. Tried to do it for the shopping list.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we just write those ones down.
Yes,
It
it'll be simpler, won't it? It was good for practice, but yes,
is.
don't try and
It
complicate things too
is.
much. So, Maria, one idea that runs through your work is that women are individuals first and then mothers second. Is that something that many women find both freeing but also difficult to kind of comprehend and sit with? And where do you think that belief comes from?
It is difficult because I think as soon as you become a mum, you have this label that's not only stuck on your forehead, it's also reinforced. So, you might go to different baby groups and you don't have a name. You're Leah's mum or Luca's mum, or so mum becomes your name. And I think, we absorb it and then find it really difficult to let go of it. And it's the same for anybody who has a role that they play through their lifetime as opposed to, well, thinking of me as an individual. Because being an individual is not a role. You are you. If when you know who you are, what you stand for, when you're able to be comfortable in your skin, that sets a solid foundation for then how you're going to live life. And so it doesn't matter what role you play in life, at your core, you know who you are, and therefore you're more easily able to make judgments, make decisions, have time to yourself and be alone with yourself. And so, yeah, it is uncomfortable because people go, well, what do you mean I have to put myself first? I have to think of me as an individual. I have children to deal with. And I think the best way to not describe it, but maybe add a bit of context. There was a lovely guy who said to me, so if you've been out and you're coming home, you haven't had any water with you, you're all thirsty, who gets to have water first? And my immediate reaction was, well, obviously I'm going to like pour some water for my children. And he's like, well, what about yourself? I mean, if you can't deal with yourself first, how are you going to look after them? And I suppose the same analogy comes from when you're in an aeroplane. They always
Yeah.
say to you, put your own oxygen mask on first, because if you can't breathe, you're not helping anybody. And that's the same here. You know, we have to acknowledge that we are individuals. It's not selfish to think of yourself as an individual, to meet your own needs. It's not selfish. You have as much right to live as the people you are looking after. And I think it also stops us from getting to those stages of when we don't have our role anymore. So whether you're employed and you see yourself as that employed person, or whether you're a mum and then your children leave, or if you're a carer and then you have no caring needs anymore, you wake up the next day and you go, well, who am I? Because the role I was playing, which is who I thought I was, doesn't exist anymore. So it's really important to know yourself as an individual and to ensure that you are meeting your needs, because you are responsible for you, nobody else. Nobody else is going to come and look after you. It's your responsibility to look after yourself. And yeah, it does take a while to just get your head around that, and to, as a mum, we often feel guilty for not doing something, or for doing something and then, did I do that right? Or should I have done it a different way? And then blaming ourselves when things go wrong. We're only human. There is no such thing as a perfect person. Nobody gives you a manual on how to live life. That's the fun of it. We make it up as we go along and we do the best we can. Nobody can ask any more of us.
Yeah, it's as you were talking there, I was thinking these roles, people's identity gets mixed up with that role, when you're right, that role is how you are with a certain person or a certain situation, but it's not you. And it's not letting that take over who you are and the essence of who you are. Yeah, and again, you use the metaphor of the masks dropping down, but also, if you're ill and you're bedridden, then the people that you think that you have to look after all the time and can't function without you actually do look after themselves and probably do a pretty good job as well. And that's a learning curve for them at the same time, that, oh, actually we could do this, because there's the thing about learned helplessness as well, isn't there? And as mums, we can do a lot of that, and do a lot of things for children and partners, and they just become a little bit used to that and sort of expect, which doesn't help with that kind of makeup of identity and who we truly are.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's fascinating. All these things kind of merge. I love the psychology of the self and how many different selves we have. We're a different person when we're on our own and with different people. And coming back to what you said about who are we as the person when we're alone, a lot of people actually don't like being alone. And I think that's sometimes I find this with journaling in the workshops, that people, they don't really know what to say because they're not used to that time alone, and turning a little bit inward for what do I want, and not always, how am I going to perform for others. There is a chapter in your book, Busy, called Are You Sleepwalking Through Life? And I think some of the things that you've mentioned already are a good example of that kind of sleepwalking, of not necessarily, paying attention to what we want. And I think that's going to resonate a lot with people listening or watching. But what does this sleep walk look like in practice? How can people recognize that, with the people that you work with? How do they first recognize that that's actually what they're doing?
So The way I describe this is, you know, when you go on a long drive, a drive that you've probably done many times and you can't remember passing certain points. However, you know you must have passed those points because you went from being at point A to point B. That's how it feels. It's when you look back at the end of the day and you just think, today's been a bit of a blur. You know, I haven't allowed myself to be present and actually make conscious decisions. And that's because we get ourselves into habits of doing the routine. And it's that internal programming then that just takes over. You know, our unconscious self knows what to do and just guides us through the day so that we're not actually making a decision on how we spend our time. Instead, we just react to what's happening in the day as part of also doing our routine that's happening in the day. So if you're sat there thinking, did I spend any time doing something that I wanted to do today? At any moment, did I have just even like 1 minute to pause to see what was happening in the day? That's when you're starting that sleepwalking. And lots of us do it. It's not unusual because there are things to do in the day. You have to get up, you have to have breakfast, you have to get the kids ready, you have to get the kids to school, you then go to work. There's lots of jobs to do at work. Then work finishes, you come home, there's the kids, you've got to sort them out. You might have to take them to a hobby, blah, blah, blah. This is the quite easily bit that gets you into that sleepwalking. And it takes practice, and I'm still practicing it because I think I still sleepwalk regularly through life because it's normal, it's natural. So it is just going, right, I'm here present in the thing I'm doing now. I'm not trying to rush through it to then get to the next thing. I'm here now. So when you get up to have breakfast, make a conscious decision. What do you want for breakfast? Not, well, we had cereal, we always have cereal, let's just have cereal. Do you really want cereal? Is that going to like nourish you? Or why don't you make a piece of toast instead? You know, it's just that art of breaking the pattern. And then if you go out to work, do you have to drive just one way? Or could you take an alternative route? Is it possible for you to walk? Dare I say it, would you like to take the bus? Depends how good your buses are. And it's getting out of that habit that you've got yourself into because the day has become a routine. So that's what I try to encourage the people I work with to look at. Live consciously rather than living through your unconscious self that, you know, does control about 90% of what we do, which is a lot.
Yeah, step away from the autopilot and just do something. It worries me sometimes that we have all of this automation now and everything on demand, and now we've got AI that will do a lot of things for us, that we're almost losing pockets of autonomy in different aspects of life. And, you know, how much is that going to increase almost, you know, if it does, or well, it is doing that. That's my view on it anyway. And that we need these present moments, these moments of change where we're doing something a little bit different, so much more so now than when we ever did. And there's the neuroscience about that as well, isn't there? We're creating the neural pathways when you do something new, and that helps to, you know, keep you more alert and, you know, helps us as we age. So, you know, it's all of that stuff as well as breaking us out of this sleepwalking mode, but it's actually good for our health as well as our life and relationship with us and others. Yeah.
The other thing, I ran an in-person workshop a couple of weeks ago, and it was about confidence. And one of the ladies came up to me and she said to me, I used to be confident, and now I just feel like I'm not as confident. There are things that I would have done that I don't do. And it ties together with the sleepwalking because we create this comfort zone that we're in. You know, we know what we do. And if we're not careful, as we get older, the comfort zone starts to shrink because we stick to the comfortable. So I remember my father-in-law once saying to me, and he was a lovely man, used to work for Airbus, had a high demand job. He retired early, and he said to me once, booking a flight and getting to the airport never used to be a problem, but now I do get a bit worried. And he said, I think I worry because I don't have any big things to worry about. So I worry about the small things. And that's what happens to us as we get older. If we don't continuously challenge ourselves, we start to shrink. And then you find that your world has shrunk, and you might be frightened to step out the front door one day. So it's really important to continue acting like you did when you were younger, regardless of your age. So keep moving, go and try new things. I mean, I'm not encouraging people to jump out of an aeroplane or do a bungee jump, because that's not my thing either. But just keep pushing the walls of the comfort zone out, so that you don't end up becoming this person you don't recognize anymore.
Yeah, becoming insular.
Yeah.
And stretch those sides of those comfort zone a little bit more. I like, as you were talking now, I was thinking, and I think I've done this consciously more so for the last couple of years. So I've always had my favourite foods. I've never really, mushrooms, green beans were the two things that I never ever liked. Liver as well. Still won't have liver. But now I'll eat mushrooms and I'll eat green beans. And I can't say that I particularly enjoy them. But I framed that a little bit, thinking that, well, it's a different type of food, so I'm getting a different type of nutrient. It's going to be good for me in another way. And if we go out to eat, I'll have something that's a little bit different. And quite often I really enjoy the vegetarian dishes, even though I'm not vegetarian, because there's actually so much more in them. The rainbow dish, it's so much more exciting than just having beige with maybe some red ketchup or something on the side. Nothing against that if that's what people love. But to me, that's a great example of starting slow and easy, of being able to push those boundaries and go out for a walk to the post office instead of taking the car, or try a different brand of something, or go for a weekend away instead of deciding to stay at home. All these little things, isn't there? There's little things that we can do. But yeah, great advice there. Now you use hypnotherapy as well as NLP alongside your coaching work. So for someone who might not be necessarily familiar with those tools, how would you describe what they make possible that standard coaching conversation might not?
So we live our lives by following patterns. You just have to see, reflect on the habits that you get, and realize that you're just going through a pattern. And it's these patterns that are run by our unconscious mind that makes us do things. So for example, you don't think about brushing your teeth, you just brush your teeth. You know how to brush your teeth. It's a pattern that, go to the bathroom, get your toothbrush, squeeze some toothpaste on it, brush your teeth. So the techniques I use are about reprogramming your unconscious mind so that you can change those patterns. And that's what's different than coaching, where you will go and see someone and they will simply ask you questions. And it's by asking you questions that you then come to the answers that are already within. So that's the difference. It's about being able to tap into the unconscious mind and to reprogram those patterns that you're playing. And the really important thing that I need to stress here is you will not take on anything that you don't want to take on. You will naturally protect yourself. And people talk about, well, I've seen people hypnotized on the stage and they're looking like a right fool, aren't they? Walking around being a chicken when somebody says KFC or whatever. And it's the thing is, those individuals wouldn't do that if they didn't want to. It just wouldn't work. So please don't worry that if you go and see a hypnotherapist or you go and see someone who is an NLP practitioner, that they're going to brainwash you into doing something that you don't want to do. You need, like with any of these things, you need to be open to the idea of the change that you want to see in order for it to last. And an example that I could give you is, I'm going to give you an example of myself, because the number of comments I get. I haven't drunk a fizzy drink for like a can of drink for a good couple of years. And like we don't have fizzy drinks in the house, but when we go down to my parents, they will always have cans in the fridge. And when I first did my NLP course, as part of it, you do the practice. You don't sit there and like, write the notes and whatever. It's an immersive experience. You take part, you are a client as much as you are the coach or the practitioner who's going through the different tools. So I haven't had a fizzy drink in a good couple of years, to the point of I will literally like open the fridge, whereas before I would open the fridge and I would pick something. I see it and there's nothing in me that makes me want to grab a drink. Now I know I could, if I wanted to, get a drink, but I just don't have it's not even motivation. I just don't want to. And it's not as much as I don't want to, it's just not there. It's like people who have never smoked or don't want to smoke. You don't look at someone smoking and go, oh, I wish I could smoke. I just choose not to because I know it's bad for my health. You just don't want to smoke. It's of a similar, I suppose, a similar thing. So that was very waffly.
No, it makes sense. So is it almost as though there's just zero emotion or attachment
Yeah,
or anything to it there that makes you either crave it or curious about it? It's just
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah, there was absolutely nothing. And that's because also that I wanted not to want it. It wouldn't have worked if I was like, okay, then, so I have to come up with this a something. What can I come up with? Oh, well, if I didn't have fizzy drinks in my life, that wouldn't be a bother. You've got to not want it as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, yeah, you will only take on what you want to take on. You've got your own, is it self-preservation that ensures that you stay safe and you won't do something that in your mind makes you feel unsafe.
Yeah. So I suppose these people thinking about the chicken on the stage scenario, because we've
Yeah.
all seen, you mentioned Darren Brown earlier. I mean, that's something from one of his shows, isn't it? But would you say that those people are just extremely open and maybe a bit extrovert and just willing to do absolutely anything? So they kind of take that on board a little bit more? Or is it that they just don't, maybe they haven't got these reservations, is it something that they've got or they're missing?
But so there's a
Or
combination.
is it not that simple, I guess?
It's not that simple. So there are people who are more open to suggestion than others. That is true. I can't remember what the percentages are, but the level by which you can hypnotize somebody, some people will be sort of 100%, which is very, 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 very few. Others, it's like might not even work because they are closed to the idea of it, just won't work on them. I don't think it hasn't got anything to do with whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. It's just because there are people who are introverts and yet, you see them out and about and they seem very, very sociable. So, introversion and extroversion is not about being loud and wanting to be the center of attention. I think more is about, how comfortable are you in your own skin? So maybe the people who get up on stage, regardless of whether they are an extrovert or an introvert, they're just really comfortable being themselves and actually they don't care what other people think. So yeah, it's more complex than just going, well, surely it's this type of person are more suggestible than this type of person.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Just being more comfortable with your own skin, and you can translate that to if you're more comfortable in your own skin, you're more willing to try different things and put you first, and you're not really bothered about anyone else's opinion, which I think is something that does set a lot of us back who are too worried about what other people might think. Yeah, fascinating. I could ask you so many more questions along that line, but let's move on to your second book, your new chapter. And that's described as a practical guide. And I think I remember the first time that we met you, we went into a little bit of detail about this. So this is a bit more like a journal, isn't it? It's a diary where it's got prompts in there, reflections and actionable steps that helps readers to let go of the past and move forward, which is a lot about what you've been talking about. And that feels like a natural progression as well from busy and that point of life that those mums can move on from. So what's kind of changed for you? What shifted between those two books, and what did you learn from writing the first one that maybe changed how you approached this second one?
So with the next chapter, I'd been talking to people about the fact that they're experiencing life events, and it's a case of, well, I don't know what to do now that I find myself in this situation that to me is alien. So individuals who are going through a divorce, they've gone from a life of being one of two people to now being by themselves. Someone who is retired, where their job was their life. One day they're employed, the next minute they're not employed. Even going through education and then maybe getting to the end of your education and not knowing what job you want to step into, regardless of whatever you've studied. So I wanted to give people a way of figuring that out for themselves without necessarily having to go to a coach, because you don't need to go to a coach. The answers you seek are within yourself. And if you're willing to find them, they will appear. So the book takes you through, as you said, by prompts, by questions, a way of putting the past to bed. So we need to acknowledge where we are. If you've gone through a divorce, I haven't gone through a divorce. You need to accept your new situation. That's not saying, you throw your emotions out and whatever. You are now a single person. It's about, number one, acceptance of where you are today, so that then you can move on. Because if you don't accept your current situation, it doesn't matter how hard you try to move forward, you'll always be pulled back. So those are the steps that the book takes you through. It's about acceptance, then figuring out, well, what does this new life look like? And then finally saying, so how do I get myself to that new life? And it's a very step-by-step book so that you can go, okay, then I'm just going to take baby steps through this. It's not a case of all of a sudden go, right, okay, then, so what does your life look like? Just, I'll hold your hand, I'll ask you some questions. Some of them might be a bit probing and might feel a bit uncomfortable. You're in your own space though, it's safe, it's okay.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect book that I could have gotten a lot out of when I split from my long-term relationship a while ago, because that was really when I found the expressive side of journaling. But to have at the time, I didn't have, obviously I've trained in techniques now, but at the time it would have been lovely to have had that guidance, that little bit of structure to take you through it. And, these kind of feelings are okay, get it out, accept, acknowledge, accept, and find the new ways of moving forward. So I think in any of these changes in life, that's the perfect companion really for people to be able to use and tap into those answers that, as you say, are already there within us. And sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance in one way, shape or form, whatever that looks like, for people to help to draw that out. Otherwise, on our own, we probably would get there, but we wouldn't get there as quick without the support. So wonderful resource for people to have, and both the books will be in the show notes. So I was having a little nosy at your social media the other week when I was doing some research for the podcast and for the questions, and I'm not sure where you were, but you were walking on this particular video, and you shared 3 things that you recommended to your clients that you were struggling. Number 1 was to have a good cry. Number 2 was to go and sit in nature, and number 3 was to go and talk to somebody. And that to me just says it all, because crying is a release, isn't it? It's an emotional release, and we do feel so much better afterwards. I'm a big nature lover, always go outside when I'm feeling off in whatever way that might be. And although sometimes I don't always like to talk to people, I can talk to my journal, and I see that as that confidant almost. And then I suppose once I've processed some of that, then I'll talk to somebody. But nature made that list along 2 very human responses there. So can you say a little bit more about what it means to you, but also in general, what nature can bring to someone in those difficult moments?
When we're going through something, whatever it is, we're struggling, our brains can be really noisy, busy, and it can feel overwhelming. And it's giving ourselves a beautiful distraction that helps to quiet the noise down for us then to hear the thoughts that are going to best serve us. And you can do so many things in nature just to bring yourself back to yourself and to find that quietness, that stillness that you're looking for. So when I'm walking, you can do mindful walking, which is just to become aware of your surroundings. Walking, what can you feel underfoot as you're walking along? What can you see? What can you hear? And your brain can only really concentrate on one thing at a time. We think we can multitask. That's a load of rubbish. Your brain is just quickly switching from different things. So by being mindful when you walk, for example, in nature, you're quietening the noise that's really not helping you. And you're focusing on something that's really beautiful. Nature is beautiful. Looking at the trees, the flowers. I've seen so many butterflies over the last week or so, and so many different ones. Usually when you just look, it says, oh, well, that's just a white butterfly. Well, have you really looked? Is it really just white? As long as, they stop long enough for you to actually look, because they are quite quick. We've got a pond in the garden, and it's nice to just look in the pond to see if I can see anything different. Bizarrely, we have newts. So just getting into nature allows you to come back to yourself and to try and gives you the opportunity to self-regulate. Because it is your nervous system going, oh my word, life at the moment is just too much. I need to do something. And it's winding itself up to either escape or freeze. And there are a couple of others. So it's allowing you to, okay, then let me self-regulate. How is that going to help me? And being in nature is like one of the easiest ways to do it.
Yeah.
Because everybody can get into nature. Just step out your front door. You don't have to necessarily step out onto a field. But when you step out of your front door, you'll see people's front gardens or hanging baskets. Look up, you'll see the sky. You'll see birds flying.
Yeah, I remember doing an exercise in it was Barcelona actually at a journaling festival, and the lady that was doing this particular exercise, a lady called Jackie Holder, she's big into nature, and we were it's not in a city, but we were in a town area. In this community centre, and she had us standing outside, and I think there was roadworks somewhere just up the road. So it was very urban, concrete, brick everywhere. And she was getting us to focus on nature. So, it's exactly what you've just said. You just have to go and look up. I was going to say upstairs then, in the sky, and you've got the blueness or the greyness, and there's so much texture there that you can really connect with and visualize, and then you can feel the heat from the sun or the breeze from the wind. It doesn't have to be, as you say, a field or a meadow or coast. There's aspects of nature that if you just slow down and let in, it does have that calming effect. And if you're really good at tuning in, you can block out those roadworks, you can block out those cars and buses and just focus on the birds tweeting, and they will be there if you're present.
I think it's also the stuff that we naturally take for granted. Because, you take for granted when you see a blue sky, considering, I think last week was a bit not nice, although the week before was very nice. It's the things that we take for granted that are naturally around us that we don't even need to try to do anything with. They're there.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's free to just go and sit there or look or listen. Yeah. Yeah. Big advocate of nature. And another thing to mention, I'm not sure if this is the same for you, but we do have running in common. That's something that we share. And you've talked about going for a run, but not because you love running itself, but for the time that it gives you and the chance to be in nature. And I think it made me think about that because I used to hate running when I was younger. I used to hate anything to do with school at running. I mean, I wasn't very good at sports at school at all, so that was probably part of the problem. Never liked running on a treadmill in the gym, but a friend introduced me to running. It coincided actually when I had split up from this long-term relationship and I was trying new things. I was trying to find who was the me now, but it was trail running. And I just fell in love with it because it was in nature. Yeah, so I was curious as to what that time does for you. Has it ever helped you work through something that you were finding particularly hard? Is that what drew you to running?
So I started my running journey in lockdown when I was sort of thinking, well, I used to go to the gym is closed. I'm no good at being in the house trying to follow like a gym thing because I feel like I don't push myself enough. I need someone to be watching me just to crack the whip a little bit. So I just started running and literally I would just go and run for half an hour around the neighborhood. Um, and then I actually started listening to Audible books. And my husband got me a Garmin so that I could actually see the distance that I was covering. And has allowed, although I tend to listen to an Audible book, so it's my chance to not only be in nature, but do a bit of personal development. There are times when I'll go for a run and I'll allow the silence to give me the opportunity to figure stuff out. So it doesn't always tend to be business stuff. It usually tends to be life stuff, to be honest with you. And it's great to then, because you can hear yourself think. When you're in the house and trying to figure stuff out, there's always something going on, excuse me. There's the radio might be on, the television might be on, I might be in the kitchen cooking. You need space. And what better way to get space than to get outside? And you don't have to run. You could just go for a quick walk. So sometimes if I'm not in the mood to run, but I want to get out, I'll go for a fast walk. There's none of this ambling. Fast walk I think that also gets my brain working and like in a problem solving readiness. So yeah, although I do remember once I listened to it, it's an amazing book, and if you haven't read it, I encourage everybody to read it. It's a book by David Goggins and it's called Can't Hurt Me. And it's basically his life story. This man is insane. The things that he's done, and he hasn't been 100% fit. So he has done ultra marathons and so on. And he's been running, and he's actually been running on broken legs, not necessarily knowing it. Yeah, he's crazy. But the message in the book is that you are more capable than you realize. Your brain will try and stop you before physically you have to stop. And so it was very early stages that I was listening to the book because he talks about his childhood, which is really traumatic. And because I've got a son, I'm like listening to the book and I'm thinking, my brain is linking him with my son, and I'm actually running and crying. Do you know how difficult it is to run and cry at the same time? I mean, it's ugly crying, and I'm running thinking I need to do my run. Oh, this is so yes. It can act like as a therapy as well, I think, being out and about, running. And that running is releasing because there's that forward momentum. It's another way of releasing that maybe just going for a nice casual walk doesn't have the same effect.
You're getting more moving through your body and going on in your body, aren't you? I suppose with the speed of running. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever cried when I've ran. I know my eyes have watered sometimes. Usually, if it's been early in the morning or something like that, and that in itself can be a bit tricky. Wearing glasses as well, steaming up. But yeah, I will have a read of that book. It sounds like a traumatic story, but quite a few lessons learned from it. Yeah. Wonderful. And anything outdoors, the power of swimming outside as well is supposed to be amazing, isn't it, for our nervous system? And just a minute or so in a kind of cold water plunge helps us. So yeah, I encourage everyone listening to not necessarily take up running, but something outside that works for you, that feels good for you. So I think we've talked a bit about writing strategies and things already. So I was just wondering if you've got any particular techniques that you might use that process your own thoughts or maybe celebrate successes, make sense in difficult moments from a journaling perspective. You mentioned about your gratitude and what you've been thankful for in the day.
I think it's really important to celebrate your successes because as humans, we too easily just go, all right, then that's done, move on to the next thing. Whereas if there's something that's difficult or challenging, we will dwell on it for far too long. So I am all for celebrating your success through your journaling, through like doing something. The women who I work with, the women who I interact with on a daily basis, when they've achieved something, I'll say to them, and so how did you celebrate that? And they'll look at me as if it's, it's an afterthought. So I think it's really important to not only acknowledge where you've had a win, no matter the size, it doesn't have to be something amazing like being the first person to complete the London Marathon 2027. Whatever the win is, because for some people, a win is actually getting up in the morning and getting dressed. So if that is a win for you, celebrate it. You've done it.
Yeah.
And mine is all around writing. I mean, I love writing. I write more now than I ever thought I would write, just as part of, as we said earlier, my daily routines, but also as part of my work. So when I was younger, I didn't really like writing whatsoever. Maths and physics was my thing. I loved numbers. It's all structured. It's yes or no. There's no like grey. Language, I was like, I can't really do this language stuff. It's all right, I'll read a book, I'll write an essay. It didn't like, I wasn't enthusiastic about it as opposed to numbers, love numbers. So to be where I am today, where, I've written 2 books, I've contributed to books, I have my writing practices, and, I love writing blogs. I love writing on social media to help not only get things out of me, because I do share, when things aren't going quite right, I have shared what's happening, also as a way of helping others to help themselves. So to really get into the heads of not just myself, my future clients, to say, you'll be going through this. Have you tried X, Y, and Z? And for it to be relatable and actionable. So that's what's really important to me, that people who are in my environment feel that they can actually do the stuff that I'm talking about, as opposed to, well, I know I can help you. I'm not really going to tell you the full story because you have to pay for it. I like to share. I want people to help themselves. I want this world to be better. I want people to smile and be happy. So yes, writing is just, I write a lot.
And you're very passionate about it now as well. You can
Yeah.
tell. Yeah, you can tell. I think the difference between you when you were at school, though, and you talked about reading that book and writing that essay, it wasn't necessarily something for you to grow from. Yes, I suppose you were learning more language and structured language and what have you, but you weren't contributing to others, which is what you do now. And, there's being in service to others and sharing your own experiences and your growth, because we all know that our experiences can help other people, because we all know that when we're in that sharing environment, we can learn from others, and it helps us to be more empowered when we talk about challenges and things ourselves. So it's that whole backwards and forwards, and it works for us, it works for others, and we're kind of keep passing the baton in that sense. And it sounds as that your writing is one way to do that. So keep writing, Maria, keep writing.
I will.
And so for somebody that's listening today, you've shared an awful lot of techniques and stories that people can relate to sort of help them improve situations that they might find themselves in. But if anyone listening today is perhaps feeling stuck, or maybe invisible, or wondering what, maybe they're facing some sort of challenge and they're wondering, what is this life meant to be, and what is it that I want? What's one thing that you would want them to do, or maybe remember after this conversation that we've had?
So one of the things that I encourage clients to do is to write themselves a letter from their future self. Because when we're feeling stuck, we can't see past what's happening right now. And this is a way of breaking that door open. So I worked with a client who she wanted to have her own home. And the situation she was in at the time, she couldn't see how that was possible. So I said to her, right, write yourself a letter Be your future self. You are in the home that you want. Write a letter describing the home that you're in. And then in a year's time, 2 years' time, when the time is right, open that letter and read it back to yourself.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I encourage people to do to break through this barrier that is present in front of them.
Yeah, that's a great technique. You don't always have to try and work out the way that you're going to get there, have that, be it a visualization, be it a letter, but you step into that frame of thinking and that future person that you want to be, situation that you want to be in. And already that helps you to get a little bit closer because you're taking that on board. I'm not talking about a manifestation. You may or may not subscribe to that kind of thought. But, thinking about things and what you want in the future, same as creating a vision board or something like that. It just brings it a little bit closer to you, makes it a little bit more, seem more achievable, closer in reality. So yeah, and that again is a little step, isn't it? It's a little step to help you on your way. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. Maria, what's next for you? What can people look out for?
So this year has been a really lovely year where it's been quite organic in the way that it's taken shape. And that's what I've continued to try and follow throughout the year. But one of the things that I've started that has been really popular is I run a workshop ever so often to help people to help themselves. I ran one last month. The next one's not going to be until November. However, it's for individuals who are in that position of they're doubting themselves and yet they know that they can have more and that they're capable of having more. So the thing to look out for is my workshop From Doubting to Decisive in November. Or otherwise, just come and follow me on social media because I'm very active and I like to share.
Yeah, as we know, you've been very sharing today. Is there a particular social media channel that you'd like to direct people to? Again, we'll share them in the show.
The one that I'm more active on would be LinkedIn. So come find me if you put in Maria Newman, you will find it.
Well, thank you very, very much for this conversation today and being so open and willing to share some of your techniques and some of your own story. Of course, I'll include links so that people can go and grab a copy of both of your books. Continue spreading your hypnotherapy and NLP and your workshops out there.
Thank you, Anna. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you'd like to continue your journaling journey with me, I hold in-person journaling circles across Staffordshire and Cheshire and a range of online workshops throughout the year. You're also warmly invited to join the Journaling Nook, my online monthly membership for £25. This includes 2 live journaling circles per month, weekly writing prompts and a monthly guest workshop. Visit writingwithpurpose.co.uk for details on all of these, including a free PDF journal planner download. All the details are also in the show notes. Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings 2 of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.